Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to bring back to the Goldstein on Gelt show Kurt Cobb. He's an author, a speaker. He's an expert on energy and the environment. If you didn't hear the interview last time with Kurt, you should be sure to look it up. In fact, as with all of the Goldstein on Gelt interviews, we turn them into videos that are available on YouTube. So just go to YouTube and look up Kurt Cobb, C-O-B-B, and Goldstein on Gelt, and you'll find the video of that interview. But last time we spoke, Kurt and I focused on oil, and one of the things that we really didn't get to develop too much, and quite frankly, I think is a game changer in the economy and certainly in the energy world, are certain alternative energies. And in particular, Kurt, I'd like to open up with a question about what are the possibilities of nuclear power, and by nuclear power I mean nuclear power plants in today's world, not the scary ones of the 1970s.
Well, I think you're right to focus on that. What we've had and what's been built almost throughout the world is what are called light water reactors. These are the ones that can melt down. These are the ones that are dangerous. This is what we saw at Fukushima. But there's a whole, I don't want to call them new because we've known about them and we've experimented with them since the 60s, a whole new breed of reactors, if I can say that, called molten salt reactors, which simply can't melt down. They're fail-safe. They if something goes wrong, gravity takes care of everything. You don't need pumps and so forth. And the Chinese are spending a lot of money researching these, researching new designs, and they could be made modularly. They could also be fueled with thorium, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that. There's probably 3 times as much thorium in the Earth's crust as there is uranium.
And it doesn't become a weapon either.
Well, it's hard to weaponize thorium that's in this kind of reactor. Not impossible, you could do it, but it's hard. So there's a lot of advantages to it. I think the development times are going to be in the decades. So I'm not sure that that's going to be an immediate response to our energy needs.
Well, you're disappointing me with that. So let's.
Okay.
I'm not so happy with the answer. Is that because, as the conspiracy theorist would say, the oil industry has all of its people and they're not letting any of this alternative energy get developed?
No, I'm just thinking about how do you take a design, an experimental design, which hasn't been worked on for 40 years, work up another new experimental design, then prototype it, and then test it, and then go to a stage where you have a pilot plant, and then finally you've got a regular production plant. All of that.
Wait, I have an answer to that. Hold on, let me just.
Yeah. Okay.
How about not doing it in America, where the rules and regulations are sometimes so onerous that and government regulation is so stiff? There must be other places like China. And secondly, what if it was done, in the form of an incentive prize? There are so many great breakthroughs that have happened from, commercial flights to space to medical discoveries based on incentive prizes. This is not this is worth hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. It seems to me someone should be in the commercial world putting money towards this if the science is so good.
Well, you make a good point. And the Chinese, as I said, are pursuing it. So the regulatory environment there is going to be a little bit different. But to me, that's the key impediment. It's the easiest thing for a nuclear regulator to say is no. And that's typically what they like to say because they're afraid of new things. And so somebody ultimately is going to have to go to a regulator and say, this, we think this is safe. Here's why we think it's safe. Here's what we're doing to keep it safe. And that's the main thing that would slow it down. There are all these other issues of financing and developing and testing, but I think it might go faster in some other country where the regulatory hurdles aren't as high. But ultimately, everybody in the world regulates things that are nuclear. And so that's why I'm not too sanguine about the timeline on this.
Sorry, so let me dive into that a little bit more. But given the upside, the amazing potential, and listen, China's getting a lot of flack from the rest of the world about their pollution, and they don't want to cut down on their use of energy. You'd mentioned that in our last interview, how you thought that was a good solution, but they're clearly not interested in slowing down. Wouldn't they be the ones who'd say, listen, we'll test it, and we've got the money to put behind it?
Well, I think that's what they're going to do. They've already announced that they're going to do it. So how fast can they do it? Maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe in 5 years or 7 years, they'll be rolling out modular thorium-based molten salt reactors. I'll be surprised if they do. But
I'll be first in line to buy one.
Okay. You're going to buy a little home model, right?
That's what they're talking about. We're talking with Kurt Cobb, a repeat visitor to the Goldstein on Gelt show, an expert in energy and the environment. And last time we spoke when he was on the show about oil, and we've been talking for a few minutes now about nuclear reactors. And specifically, I wanted to discuss the possibilities of using thorium to make them maybe even a little bit safer. Kurt, let's focus on other alternative energies that might be viable to give our listeners a bit of hope. The biggest source of energy that I see every day is the sun. Is the people who support solar energy and who, give a good pitch when they come to my house and say, "Hey, put panels, on your roof. PV is the way of the future." Is it really the way of the future?
Well, I think it is for a lot of reasons. One, the fuel is free, and the technology is advancing so quickly. If you've been thinking about putting solar on your roof, probably anywhere in the world. If you've been thinking about it for more than a few months, you've watched prices move down. So we're getting better and better at that. I think, the storage issue, which we talked about last time I was on, is the main issue. How can we store the electricity for when we want to use it? How can we store the electricity that we get during the day so we can use it at night when we really want to? And I have seen designs that could overcome that problem, could make solar-generated thermal energy, that is just the heat that we gather, could make it cost-effective and could store it so we could be generating 24 hours a day. So I think that's going to come. I don't know when. And so I think that,
not to tie you down on a date, but are we talking come in 100 years or come in the next?
No. I mean, this is a design that could be proved up in the next 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. So if that's true, then why wouldn't everyone short oil today? Or short oil after it spikes and then short it permanently?
Because we're still going to be using oil for a lot of things. Oil is a liquid fuel, and we use liquid fuel for transportation, so it's not going to go out of style. I think we're going to try to electrify the transportation network, and I think we should. But I don't think that oil is going to be, the big short anytime soon. At some point it might be, but I wouldn't bet against oil just now.
Okay, let's talk about a few of the other kind of popular alternative energies, or one of the more interesting ones, which is algae. Having these huge balloons in the ocean where they just grow algae. Is that a possible future energy source of any scale?
People have been experimenting with this. I wonder about the scale. And that's the issue. You can make fuel from algae. You can make oils that you can put in, ultimately put into a diesel engine. You can make biodiesel. You can make ethanol. All of these things are possible. It's just partly the question of cost, and then the question of scale. How much could you scale this up? With algae, there are the problems of what scale. It's really scale. When it comes down to it. And when you're producing biological products, there's a lot of inputs, a lot of care. I'm skeptical about those in the short term. I think that if we are looking for liquid fuels for transportation, we're not going to find the Holy Grail anytime soon for that, and that's why I'm in favor of electrifying our transportation network, because that's a viable strategy. We have electrified part of it, and I think we could go much further.
And are these other sources of energy, they're often referred to as clean energy, and it makes people feel good, but are they in fact clean, or are there environmental risks to them?
Well, as it turns out, almost all the alternatives that we've talked about and that are out there require some form of fossil fuel to either build or service, because our whole infrastructure is based on fossil fuels. So what we need to do is get to the point where we can produce windmills with electricity produced by windmills, that we can produce solar panels with electricity produced by solar panels.
Well, it's not just a small investment of oil in order to get a solar panel field.
Right. No, it's reasonably small, which is why solar is becoming more and more cost effective, but it's not zero. The main issue for me is liquid fuels. I don't think we're going to run out of electricity anytime soon. So if we can solve the liquid fuel problem either by electrifying the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, or by figuring out some other liquid fuel that'll work for us, that'll go a long way to solving our future energy challenges. Nothing on the horizon in liquid fuels looks like it's going to be a breakthrough right now.
All right. So, Kurt, let me ask you the final question. I'll ask you to imagine over 10 years. Let's say that you are thinking of retiring and you're looking to take a piece of money and invest it into something that's going to do well. And I don't want you to name an individual company or stock, but I want to get the field. In the energy world, where should someone place his bet today?
Well, I would say I'll just, and I'm guessing.
That's okay. No one's going to hold you to it.
I answer because I'm asked.
It's between you and me. We won't tell anyone.
Okay. Natural gas is going to be a growth area for some time. If you can figure out how to invest in that, I think that's you wouldn't want to invest in just one company because it's a broad area. And the other is energy efficiency. I think those companies are going to be some of the most exciting ones, the ones who produce devices, who have processes, who have methods that allow people to use a lot less energy. They're the ones that they're going to make countries and companies much more competitive because they won't be so dependent on energy of any kind.
Mm-hmm. Energy efficiency and natural gas. Okay, I'm just noting for our listeners, Kurt and I are just kidding. We're not, as far as a specific recommendation, obviously, every person has to look at his own specific financial plan and speak to a licensed financial advisor before doing any investing. But it's always good to hear from an expert which way he thinks the markets are going. Kurt, listen, it's a real pleasure to have you back. I hope we'll have you back again in the future. In the last few seconds, just tell me, how can people follow you and follow your work?
Well, the easiest way is just to look on any search engine. Just put my name in, Kurt Cobb, K-U-R-T, C as in cat, O-double-B as in boy, and my work will come up.
All right. We will put a link to that and also a link to your novel, Prelude, at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Kurt, thanks again for your time.
Thanks. I really
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world. If you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.